Welcome to Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing, one of the fastest growing real estate investing podcasts in the world. What if you could learn from experienced real estate investors? Find out what got them to where they are now. Get insight into their daily habits and take these insights to inspire your own growth. Each episode, Jonathan Greene shares an in-depth look at the mindful approach to real estate investing. Jonathan is a lifelong real estate investor and the founder of Streamline, a data-driven, investor-friendly, independent real estate brokerage located in Madison, New Jersey. Whether you're looking to start from scratch, get to the next level, or just for a straightforward and honest approach to real estate investing, this is the free mentorship program you can take with you anywhere. Now, here's Jonathan.
Thanks for showing up for another episode of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. My guest today is Steph Weber of the Weber Co. We're talking short-term rental, boutique hotel, tailored branding and marketing strategies. We're talking branding, websites, email marketing, social media, content strategy. And at the end, we talk about influencer partnerships. I want you to listen all the way to the end because that's a really interesting part. We could probably do a whole show on it. But now you're going to hear the whole show with Steph now. This is episode 303 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Steph Weber. Steph is the CEO of the Weber Company. She pivoted her fashion influencer and marketing business to the Weber Co. in 2019. Then she launched TWC Agency. Then she realized there was a gap in the STR world. She started to fill it. She's now opened a micro resort, Cabins on the Cumberland. And now she is the top choice for branding and marketing for short-term rentals, property management companies, co-hosts, and boutique hotels. And I know you do you have a co-hosting business as well. Steph, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jonathan. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you. We were just talking to you before and saying, I'm going to just leave these up to all the ideas that I have just until we get on the show. But I want to start with something interesting that I think is a big part of the STR world, and then we'll scoop back to your background. But why is direct branding so important for short-term rental owners now?
One, you're not riding the coattails of a platform you don't own, right? Again, like Airbnb is great. And I always try to make it clear, like I am not telling you to jump ship and abandon Airbnb. It is a great piece of the business as a whole, right? It's a great platform, but that's what it is. It's a listing platform. Yeah. And when we just rely solely on Airbnb to drive revenue for us, we are putting all of our business in the hands of a platform we have no control over. And as we've experienced in 2025, Airbnb has made a lot of changes for us hosts. And so it is wildly important to make sure that you have full ownership and control over the brand that you're building and allow guests to know what that brand is and what you stand for and what you're all about, especially for those that are growing and scaling their portfolios or potentially even scaling into the boutique hotel side of things. It is so crucial to make sure that you're doing what you need to do from the very beginning of helping them understand and connect to the brand and then doing the marketing to keep that brand in front of them. Because Airbnb is doing a good job of that. Like Airbnb is on top of their marketing. This is why I often hear clients or I'll hear people say, oh, I own an Airbnb. And I'm like, you don't own an Airbnb. Don't give them that much credit.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone very early on, probably in the first 100 episodes, we were talking about something similar and they said it's a marketing channel. You know, like that's, if you think of it like that, that's a better thing. It's one of the best marketing channels out there, the best for short-term rentals because the other ones have really, fallen by the wayside. I know there's another, but yeah, how much more money can you make if you can figure out a way to avoid the monopoly or still use it the way that you want? But in order to create this kind of direct brand and good branding strategy, you either need to hire someone or you need to know what you're doing, right? Because the old way of doing it where you just post, 15 pics that aren't even professional, that doesn't cut the mustard anymore. The bar to entry for short-term rentals is so high now. So I think it's even higher if you want to go direct booking. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely would agree with that. Yeah. If you want to go the direct booking route, you are really truly building a branded guest experience. So you want to make sure that you've created not just a place to stay, but a true all-encompassing destination and experience for those guests. So it is, you do have to take it a step further. And I use the term like you've got to have a marketable property, something that you can market on social media, something that you can market via email, etc. And that is not just like beds in a home. It has to go so much further beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think it ties into a lot of things. It ties into having a name. A lot of properties, when you look at just, there's no brand. I mean, if there's no name, there's not really a brand. Your brand isn't a pool house in the woods. That's not a brand. That's just very generic.
Yeah, 100%. It's incredibly generic. And again, kind of going back to whenever we do the branding process, it's like, who is the audience, right? Because we're not trying to reach the masses. We're trying to create and design this experience intentionally for the target audience that we want to attract the most to this specific property. So everything stems from understanding that target audience and beyond just demographic information, right? It's like really understanding what are their needs? What are their pain points? What is it that they're looking to gain out of this travel experience with you? And then crafting the narrative and the story around that and bringing your property to life through that lens too.
Yeah, I love the phrase travel experience because it's so much better than a stay. I think a lot of people are focused on the stay, but like you can get a stay at just a generic, garden inn. I mean, it's fine. That's a stay. There's a bed. I'd prefer to have other stuff, but that's why I go to something that's more exciting, like a travel experience. And then in order to build the brand, you have to build out the experiences that go with it. But I think something interesting about what you're saying is I in my research for Cabins on the Cumberland, your avatar was really you guys, your own family, like what you wanted to do. And I want to see if you agree. I tell a lot of people when they're looking to do their first short-term rental, just build the avatar around themselves because you know yourself the best. And as you said, you can't shoot for the masses. You'll lose every time because it's going to be boring.
Absolutely. It's either you or a past version of you or an aspirational version of you, right? But there is some of that in there. And branding is such a personal experience too, Jonathan. So no matter what we're building and what we're creating, there's still a level of us that's involved in that. And so yes, for Cabins on the Cumberland, I mean, we always do this combined with market research, right? So we took a look at like, what does Lake Cumberland, who does Lake Cumberland attract? And we took a look at their tourism board and the data that we could find there. And it is predominantly families. But we were like, all right, so what in this area really exists for families and what can we do that's different? And there are 4 total couples that are involved in that deal. So it was really going, all right, what do we want? What do we want to bring our kids to? What do we want to foster and create here? What's the feeling, right? Because branding is so much about emotion. And I think that's the thing that gets sometimes a little lost in branding. It's about how you're perceived, how you make people feel. And we have to make sure that everything that we're doing ties to that feeling and leaves that impression so people want to come back and refer to us. Tell their friends about this amazing experience they had.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're focused on direct booking, it's really all going to be in the return guest and the referrals because you don't have that elite marketing platform that's just pushing you out. Obviously, you can use them together, but as you said, there's a lot of changes and the percentages go up when you have a monopoly, and there's not much you can do if you're tied to that and your 600 reviews instead of an email list that you've built over 4 years, which is probably much more important than people think, don't you think?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I was just chatting with someone today who's tapping into the boutique hotel and motel side of things. And they have short-term rentals and they manage short-term rentals. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like you must be sitting on all of these emails. And they're like, we haven't done that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you've been doing this for 4 years now. And you haven't been collecting guest emails, which is so unfortunate because when you go to launch that boutique hotel or the motel or the new property,
who are you going to tell?
Who are you going to tell? You're going to go list on the OTAs again, right?
Yeah,
let's avoid doing that. So yes, building out the email list. I always say that's lowest hanging fruit for short-term rentals, boutique hotels. Like for this industry, it is so crucial that you are at the very least collecting those past guest emails so that again, your brand has to be recognized because in some ways it does become this like, well, I've heard hosts say, oh, but my guests just go back to Airbnb. And I'm like, right, because Airbnb has done the job in building brand recognition and brand recall. You have to do that for your own business. But if you're not doing anything to stay in touch with those past guests, of course, they're just going to go back to Airbnb. It's what they know.
Yeah. I mean, with your extensive experience on marketing and branding, do you think that a lot of people, I think they just don't understand that how long they have to continue to brand. It's never ending. And sometimes they'll just be like, well, I started an Instagram page and I have 4 followers and I posted 15 pics, but I don't have any traction. Or they try to do one ad and they think that's it. It's like that's not an experience. You don't build a brand that way. You build a brand by showing up every day, right? And making sure that you're delivering the same message, like you said, across all platforms so that when people ping pong around you on the web and they get in your spider web, they're like, oh, this stuff all does look similar.
Absolutely. Well, I put it in terms like this. we are so, as short-term rental owners, we're so spoiled because I've worked with hundreds of different businesses in different industries. But as short-term rental owners, we're very spoiled that we do have these OTAs that we can list on. And potentially within 24 hours, we're going to have a handful of bookings, right?
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
true.
oh my gosh, we spent all this time designing and all these things, but like now revenue's coming in and this is so great. And we just had to list and hit publish on a platform, right? Which is fantastic. So I think we're a little spoiled in that regard. Yeah. But if you're using your own brand and marketing hand in hand and going, all right, what's our strategy here really? And what does that need to look like? Well, not ditching the OTAs, but also keeping in mind that this is important for us to have that brand autonomy. We have to make sure that we have the strategy in place in order to do that and do it well, right? So it's like, don't let your marketing and your whole business structure be at the hands of that platform that you don't own.
Yeah, and I think it's really important for your future potential other properties, because that's how you're building up your base to send people to those new properties. As you were saying, if you haven't capitalized on that, who are you sending your new property to? The OTAs or Instagram or social media, and you're starting from scratch again instead of taking 100 guest experiences and then saying, hey, we have a new property. And they all had a good time, or you probably put them on a secondary list, which is like, don't email, to make sure who's getting the good stuff. But yeah, I think more goes into short-term rentals in general than a lot of people thought when they were really booming. And now people are realizing the table stakes are so high: photography, experiential views, what you're bringing to the table, branding, as you said. You can't just set up shop and put it on Airbnb with your iPhone photos and do well anymore. The algorithm does not like that.
No,
and
it
nobody
doesn't.
else does either.
No, they do not. I think what I've tried to help hosts get in the mindset of, Jonathan, is really understanding that they're not just, this isn't a hobby. It's not like, we thought it was a good idea to buy a short-term rental. We'll put some furniture in there. We'll list it on Airbnb. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
This is no longer that type of business. You're building a hospitality business, right?
Yep.
So you have to shift your mentality from, let me just list, to how are we going to build this brand for the long haul and the long term? And where are we trying to go? What's our bigger vision here? And yeah, to your point too, about making sure that when you go to launch those new properties, you're going back to guests that have already had a great experience with you. So if they know about you, they're much more likely to book direct because they've already had that experience. They're low-hanging fruit. And when we're talking about a marketing funnel, oftentimes those past guests get forgotten about, which is so unfortunate, because I'm like, they're your easy people. Like, they are so bought in already because they remember the experience that they had with you. So now when you go to launch the new property, they're going to go, oh my gosh, yeah, remember when we did, X, Y, and Z, whatever they did at your property. So it's really easy to do that. Don't forget about those people. Don't leave them out. It's so often we're like focused on how can we get, the new person in, and we need to be focused too on those past guests. It's about both. You have to balance that.
Yeah, and I think that's why people need to seek help of experts, because as we're both saying, sometimes you get into it, and if you've presented a good product and you're maybe good at branding and you have great photos, you're going to get overwhelmed pretty quickly. You don't realize you put it up and you have 16 bookings already, and now you're like, wait, I don't even have the chatbot set up. I don't know what I'm going to do, and then you start to forget about, oh wait, I still need to order toilet paper for the property. Yes, like there's a lot that goes into it. And again, like I said, I think people don't realize that they're running a very big hospitality business. If you do a good product, what did you expect was going to happen? I mean, if you put out a terrible product, sure, you're not going to be busy, but you're also not going to make money.
That's so true. I feel like so often when we start things, we're like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting and it's shiny and new, and we do the branding and we do the design and we're like, woo, this is so awesome. And then, those bookings roll in and you're like, shoot. My property management software and the messaging and the inventory restocks and the cleaning coordination. And it's like, woo, there's so much. Yeah. And then you get distracted by like, got to focus on my systems. Then you neglect the branding and the marketing. So it's like, okay, you've got to figure out. And this is the conversation that I have with hosts a lot. And it's a conversation I've had with myself. Like, what is my zone of genius? What am I really good at? What do I need to be focused on? And where do I excel? And I bring that full force into the business. And then I outsource other pieces of this to help me continue to maximize, to help me. For example, I don't love revenue management. It's not my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah,
so for 2026, I'm like, nah. So for 2026, one of my goals is to hire a revenue manager for all the properties that we co-host. Cause I'm just like, I don't need to be the one to do it. I know it. I understand it. But I don't have to be the one to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's a who, not how principle. And I think people attach that principle to smaller things when they shouldn't, instead of getting rid of these larger things where I used to do this. I mean, I still do my own social media. I'm never going to stop because I feel like is my brand. But when it comes to other things, I don't need to do every last thing. Even if someone's going to do it not as good as me, but pretty close, that I free up all the extra time for myself. And I'm not going to make the errors, or maybe they make a slight error, but it's not that big a deal. If you're running a business, which everybody should be going into this thinking, at least they're building the start of a business, you have to prepare to do well, or else, I mean, as again, we're saying, it's just a tougher landscape out there. I started doing short-term rentals 20 years ago with my sister. We just put them up on HomeAway. We hired a photographer, so we were ahead of the game. We were always in real estate. And yeah, the bookings started coming in and we're like, wow, like this, we can make a lot of money with this. And we did. And it was before there was, a great channel. It wasn't like HomeAway was killing it. It's just people slowly found it and you worked off a few different sites at the same time. What did you learn in your original fashion influencer business that has translated to what you do now? Because I know I see a lot of similarities, especially savvy social media goes to savvy branding, and representing other brands in the way that they want by putting your own spin is probably put in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I worked in the fashion industry for about a decade. And in that, we started working with influencers. And I was like, hang on a second. We are paying people to we're sending them free clothes. And then we're paying them to talk about them on social media and post stories and reels weren't even a thing at the time, right? It was just like a post on Instagram. Yeah. And I was like,
those were when it used to say like ad and capitals, and you're like, oh, this is great. Yeah.
Yes. Way back when. And you had to post at like 8 p.m. because that was like the prime posting time. It was like a whole thing, right? So I was like, I can do this too. So I started Trendy and Indie, and it very quickly became a space for fashion, beauty, and travel. And so in that, I had a number of different collaborations with 25 Hours hotels over in Europe and Andaz, both on in Napa Valley and then on Wall Street. Lark Hotel Group out in Nantucket. So a lot of really amazing travel collaborations and collaborations, of course, in the fashion and beauty space. What I experienced in that time, Jonathan, was that the brands I was working with didn't have great clarity around their brand stories. And really, I would ask like, why, if I was at a boutique, why am I here to promote this outfit here when I can literally go get it down the street? And I knew the fashion industry really well. And it was like, well, we have the best price. And I'm like, no one cares about that. Like, that's not good service, right?
Someone
like,
else could just go a cent under you. It's eBay. I mean,
exactly. Right. So that's not great positioning. So I started realizing, okay, these brands need help with their branding and their positioning and how they're showing up and the messaging and the language that they're using. And then, of course, their visuals as well. And so I think that has helped me as we got into the world of short-term rentals. We got into this industry in 2023. And right away, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like, I can see the gaps in this industry and in this space. And so much of it came back to the branding, but B, also the marketing.
It's really changed, though, since 2023. Just in 2 years, if you just look at the quality of stays, it's really tremendous. And the quality of marketing around. I mean, people are learning or they're getting a lot of help, but it's so much better. Yeah, in 2023, you could still squeak by, with pretty good photos. But now it's like, it's the same with amenities, though, for short-term rentals. They used to not be that important. But now, again, if we want the guest experience, you have to really consider the amenities, but not all of the amenities apply to every property. And again, that it's an expert's view. And that's where I feel like short-term rental operators are making the biggest mistake. They started with their own avatar, which is them, which is fine, but they never adjusted it. They may be fine with not having a Peloton or not having a view, but nobody else is when other things come online to beat you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And taking it a step two, it is like so much of it is amenities focused. I take it a step further with my clients and going, okay, you don't just have a sauna, you have a wellness ritual that you can actually brand and create the experience around too, right? And I think that's like kind of the next layer of, okay, I feel like so often in this space, Jonathan, we're all trying to out-design and out-amenity each other. It's like, how many boxes can we check on Airbnb has become the design theme, right? And I'm like, okay, yes, but instead of that, why don't you just create this really intentional experience so that your guests aren't like how do I use the sauna? How should I experience this? You guide them through that through that experience, right? And that becomes the travel experience piece of this.
Yeah, that was such a great point. I actually see that a lot in the bed count, because for me, a lot of people, they're trying to max out their bed count. They have 6 bunk beds so they can say they sleep 17. It's like, but nobody wants that. That's not even your ideal guest. You really want that? You're going to get all like 17 college bros? No, thanks. So I'm always for less beds, more minimalism, and more just a curated environment. And I think that probably syncs more with what you would be doing. Of course, it depends on the client, but I just don't see anybody really wanting that maximalist theme unless you're going for the party. And again, that's just a different branding that you're going to put up for the whole property.
That's a different brand. That's a different level of liability. That's not something that I want to step into. Yeah. That's for sure. But yeah, you're right. I do feel like you mentioned how much this industry has changed since 2023, and it really has. And I feel like that was still like a little bit of the strategy in 2023 was like, how many people can we sleep? How many people can we get in here? And now it's like, oh no, that is actually not what our guests are looking for or what they actually want. So yeah. And again, I think that's also like a mindset shift too. So I often have people who will reach out and be like, we're interested in getting into short-term rentals, or I'll have people on the co-host platform on Airbnb reach out about co-hosting with us. And we're so particular about the properties that we take on. And I'll tell anyone the same thing who wants to get into short-term rentals. I'm like, if you're not willing to really be intentional about crafting who the avatar is, who you're designing for, and pour into that, this is probably not going to be the best investment for you, because you're going to end up frustrated. Unfortunately, you're going to be like, so excited that you bought your first investment property, but then it flops because you put beds in and called it a day, and that just doesn't work anymore. So you have, again, like a big mindset shift, and that will only continue. And Airbnb showed that to us in this last year, like what people are looking for by adding the experiences, which is a whole nother thing we could go into. But by adding that into their platform, they've done their research. They didn't add that because they thought it'd be a good idea. Data showed them that would be a good idea and something that guests were looking for. So they were trying to solve a problem for their ideal avatar, right? And adding the experiences section into this.
Yeah, the interesting part of that is most of us knew about this way before. We were doing experience, not necessarily but we knew about it. You can bring in a chef. Like even 15, 20 years ago, we were saying, meet everybody in the town. Make sure you have the gift basket from the town. You're going to get from Les, because then they're going to go to Leslie's shop in the town. Meet the chefs. This was all available, but now Airbnb is doing it at scale and getting a cut, and everybody's like, oh, look, they're so smart. No, people were doing this at short-term rentals when I was a kid, when they were just really like timeshares. There was always massages available and things like that. So you as a single operator can do this yourself without the platform. We're going to talk more about it. I love Airbnb as a marketing channel. I think they're really good as a brand. I like them, but I also think it is important to just not give up, as you're saying, your full control to just one end. What if the site, shuts down? Or what about when Amazon, the web services is off? Now what do you do?
Yeah. Or they decide that I'll give a quick story here, Jonathan. Yeah. We listed, so we have 12 total cabins at Cabins on the Cumberland. So a couple weeks ago, I went to go list the last cabin. Mind you, the cabins are on a brand new road. They all have brand new addresses, but I've already listed 11 cabins at this point. Okay. Right. So I've never had an issue until
just onto the last one.
Yeah. Just until the last one. So I go to list it on Airbnb and I'm like, yes, like getting the last one done. This is going to be so great. I enter the address and it's like address not found. And that happened. Like I've seen that in the past, but I'll, you can enter it manually and bypass it and it's fine. I couldn't bypass it. And I was like, what is happening right now? So I talked to 2 different support experience representatives or, at Airbnb, right? Yeah. And the one was like, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go to Google Maps. Well, for anyone who has not ever had to deal with Google Maps, that is a 6-month process.
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
just like
Tanya, that's
not
an acceptable
profile.
answer. No, I'm like, that's not an acceptable answer. That's not going to work. But again, like, yes, it is a great marketing tool. It is a great platform for that. So use it as a tool in your toolbox and your bigger strategy.
Yeah. Do you think somebody who buys in on the brand, builds a brand, I don't know how many, how advanced they are, but do you think that somebody can do it without Airbnb, or would that be dumb?
It's probably not something I would recommend unless you have here's what I would say. Unless you really have an extensive marketing budget where you're willing to pay for ads and you're willing to invest in influencers, then sure, like maybe. But I mean, there are plenty of brands, like we can use Isaac French story as an example. Now, again, I think that it was kind of one of those like right place, right time scenarios, right? But he listed his, I can't remember how many, I think it was like 7 cabins or 7 units or something. And their entire account got shut down like 3 weeks after they listed. And he was like, what am I going to do? So he had an influencer come out who did a giveaway, and that just like absolutely crushed it. And so they have been almost 100% direct booking, I think, since the very beginning of Live Oak Lakes. And again, that's a fantastic story, right place, right time. I'm not sure that it's 100% duplicatable in today's market, unless you are doing a really unique stay or a really unique experience, then maybe. And again, kind of to your point earlier, it has to be about the property as well, right? Like a lot of our properties that we co-host are downtown Indianapolis, and they're really nice properties. They're super cool. They're not necessarily all like brandable, highly marketable properties, right? So the platforms do a really good job, and then we capture that past guest information on the back end so that we can market to those past guests and have them book direct when they come back to Indy for their next event.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And I do think, I think you said earlier, the property really has to work for you to work on it. And I think in order to do direct booking or create that kind of overarching brand, you need to have a property that matches. You just can't do it on a humdrum. It's just, you're just wasting your time. Then you make it look great, you put it on the portals, and you just do well. I mean, that's just, you have to kind of understand where you are. And again, there's a lot of inexperienced operators in the short-term rental game, and they're getting it wrong all the time. I've heard a lot of people say, like when they have them up for sale, because I do a lot of work in upstate New York, and they'll have them up for sale and they'll say, well, the owner's comfortable with what they're getting, and they're making like 35 a year. So they're at like some break even. I'm like, but they could be making 90, like with just a couple tweaks. So so they're kind of sitting on a sales price that nobody's buying because their Airbnb data doesn't match, what the sale price is, and they have no real other way to say it. And they're caught in this weird conundrum that they're not trying that hard, but they also want to sell as if they were.
Yep. That's absolutely right. I mean, we see that all the time. And it's like the constant conversations. It's so interesting in the work I do, because from our branding and marketing agency, I usually am having conversations with the hosts that are really dedicated to their brands and want to grow that and want to do the marketing and all of those pieces. On the co-hosting side of things, that battle is a little bit different. It's like, I bought the property and I just want it to make money. And I'm like, okay, well, in order to do that, here's the design that you need to have, or let me show you the properties in Indianapolis that are really killing it. Right. And let me show you what they've done. And they're like, oh, I don't really think I want to invest in all of that. And I'm like, okay, well, here we are.
I mean, it's such for the people who get the expert help, you can look and see what your competition is. That's why I love short-term rentals right now. Like I was out of it for a long time, and now I'm actively looking again to get back into it, because you can go and use AirDNA and Airbnb, and you can absolutely see what your direct competition is, and you can just build to beat it. It's just, you can set it up that way, or just build to join it, if you're thinking cooperatively, because there's a lot of people there. And again, that's a smart thing though. So maybe some of those clients, you're like, no, at some point you just say, no, it's not a good fit, because it's a waste of your skills for someone to say, well, I don't want to do all that stuff. It's like, well, then just leave it on the portal by itself. I can't. If you're not going to do anything, I can't help you do nothing. It doesn't make any sense.
That's exactly right. And that's what we do now. At the beginning of our co-hosting journey, I was just so stoked to be able to have anyone and everyone. And now I'm
there's probably so many people you're like, couldn't wait to fire, because it's very hard though. I talk a lot with capital raisers when they're building for their first project, and they're like, they accept people who are always going to be a pain. And then, second project, they're like so excited to say no to them. Because it's just like, but that's building a business. The same as when when you get those stays in the box, you might take a couple where, in my opinion, like I've always said, my old strategy was, if anyone asks any questions before they book, I immediately decline the booking, because that's a 4-star review at best. Because after we formulated the whole description, we knew nothing was missing. Once they start asking, how many pack and plays do you have? Do you have colanders? You're just like, no, you're going to say it was a great stay. That's it. And then 4 stars. And it's like, that's not great to me, and it goes to the reminder that you always have to ask for 5 stars to get it. But it's just wow, what an interesting world it is. Hey, it's Jonathan. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Steph Weber. And if you want help building a bold brand and iconic guest experiences with Steph and her team, go to theweberco.com. There's a button in the top right that says Let's Chat. You can view their previous work. Keep listening because we get to some really cool stuff now. I want to pivot over to your cabins on the Cumberland because this is a boutique hotel, or it's really a cabin resort, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's somewhere in the middle of all of these things we're talking about and boutique hotels.
Right. It's definitely an interesting community. So I would say that they operate a little bit more like short-term rentals, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's self-check-in, self-checkout.
Yeah.
They're separate. So we call it a micro resort. And the reason that we kind of use that terminology is because you can do a full buyout, and we sleep up to 72 guests in our 12 cabins on the property.
Awesome. Yeah.
And it's 9 acres. And again, like talk about built-in experiences. We've got a private boat ramp to get out onto the river. You can fish right off the boat ramp.
I was just watching the video before we got on. I was like, oh, hey, I got to go here. This looks great.
Yes, it's so great. It's so great. And now we've got our game center and we've got our venue. So we built it more than a vacation destination. It truly is a space where you can come and you can host your family reunions. Or we've had a church group come and do a full buyout already, which was fantastic. So it kind of, it operates similarly to short-term rentals until we're doing events. And then it's a little bit different in terms of how we operate and navigate that. But it's been phenomenal. And we started that process. So we got into the world of short-term rentals in April of 2023. And that property found its way to us in July of 2023. And I was like, let's do it. Let's go all in. But for me, with my background and the branding and the marketing piece of what I do, Jonathan, the boutique hotels and the micro resort play, like that side of things makes more sense, I feel like, for me and what I want to do and our investment aspirations, I guess, if that's fair. So when this project came our way, I was like, we got to do it. I don't care how we have to do it, but we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, bigger scale to be able to market a community of 12 instead of just pounding away at the one, which will do well, but you can really create something that's more recurring when you have 12 units. And also, like you said, alternative stays. I personally think these larger micro resorts and even the larger properties have more scale because I think there's a lot of retreats, wellness retreats, investing retreats, mindfulness retreats. They're all over the place. Lots of groups. Family travel is great for family reunions. If you bill yourself that way, I think you'll probably be booked, for a long time. So having the option to go with both just gives you that separate income stream and makes it a little bit more fun instead of just all always the same thing.
That's true. Yeah, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And it really is more about, okay, what did we craft here intentionally, right? And for the long haul for us too, this wasn't, every investor has a different goal in mind. For us, this is a legacy property. Like we knew that we wanted to be in this for a long time. So we weren't building it to sell it right away. We were really building this to hang on to it and have the long-term equity play in this. And for me too, it was more of a proof of concept project. I'm like, we did this and here's what we did in 2 years. And now here's where we're at. And now let's go do more projects.
Right. Now your availability to help other people with similar projects is so much higher because you have your own proof of concept there that you can point them to. They can go on the web. You have the data to back it up. What state were the cabins when you bought them? I mean, the state of disrepair or repair. I mean, were they in good shape? What did you have to do when you got this property? Because sometimes it just sounds like 12 cabins. It sounds like that could be really bad.
This is one of my favorite things to talk about because they were new builds. This was a new development. Yeah. So completely new construction, which honestly I love. And we've built both of our homes that we live in. So I have a thing for new construction, I guess. But when we visited the land in August of 2023, it was just an empty 9 acres. Now the builder had already parceled the land out. So kind of like each unit, if you will, had its own separate lot that sit on about a half an acre to an acre or so. So he was like, when we saw the land that August, it was ready. Like he was ready to go. And he actually had already sold off one of the plots at that point in time as well, which once we once we did this whole thing, that the person who purchased that came back to us and was like, I don't want this anymore. Will you buy it back?
Yeah.
Which
that
is
was
how
a
we got our
mistake
12
by
cabins.
him to sell that one.
Yeah. He's like, just kidding. I don't want this. Yeah. Never mind. So that worked out really well for us. But yeah, so it was actually great. And actually the builder and his wife are one of the partners in the deal as well. So that was super beneficial for us in this development process, because now not only did the builder have obviously his build timeline, but now he's an investor in the deal too. Like he stayed in it. So definitely different level of heart for the project, if you will. And everyone all of the partners that are a part of this share the vision. And I think that's probably one of the most important things to anyone who's thinking about partnering in a property, and vision beyond just do the numbers work, right? Yes, we had to look at the numbers, and we had to look at, what's our worst case scenario? What's this going to look like for us, and sign the guarantees and all the things. But it was like, do we all share this same collective vision of what we were trying to build here? And because if you don't, then when decisions come up like, oh, we have the opportunity, we have land still, can we build a game center? Right. And if not all the partners share the vision, someone's going to say no. And that's going to be a sticking point, right? When that came up for our partnership, it was like, yes, we build the game center. Yes, this makes sense. Let's go back to the bank and ask for more money.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a difference between running a business and running a hospitality business. And a hospitality business is always focused on the guests and the experience and upgrading and making sure it's better. And as we were saying before, staying ahead of competition. Somebody could drop in a micro resort somewhere, and you still have to stay active to make sure that you can beat them out and that you've grown your brand ahead. And I think that will constantly be evolving as people try to do this, especially in this type of micro resort boutique hotel. It's still generally newer. People are starting to get an idea of it. It's a bigger bite of the apple for a lot of people. So I like that you went in for the new build. You had the builder there. It's just smarter than doing a bunch of renovations and fixing stuff that, especially since the lots were already all set out. I mean, that's a huge thing that's already complete, moving into it. What do you think you learned from going in on that as opposed to going into a renovation? I mean, it just seems like you have a lot more control.
We had a lot more control for sure. The idea of doing renovations, which actually I do see so many people do in the space. And what's so fantastic about those is that you can do cash out refi and then reinvest those dollars in other scenarios. So again, there's pros and cons, and you have to kind of decide from an investment perspective what makes sense for you, but also from a headaches perspective, maybe is kind of what I would say, right? Like when you're developing, there are certain headaches, but most of the time, everything's brand new. Things are still under warranty. We've had a couple of little plumbing hiccups, and the plumber's like, I'll come back out and fix the work. Or we've had some issues with our mini splits, and our new HVAC guy is fantastic. So we've had those little things in development that can always feel like, oh man, we just got done with this, and there's already a problem, and that can feel a little frustrating, but at least it's all brand new versus you're going into a renovation project and you're like, oh, now all of a sudden we have to completely redo all of the electrical. That was the other thing I think with new development. Most of the costs are pretty expected. We had a few things that surprised us along the way, but for the most part, we knew what we were getting into. The Wi-Fi situation down there, that was a little bit of a surprise to us. But again, our builder helped take care of that, and so saved us several $1,000s in Wi-Fi installation, which was great. So a few things along the way that we had to deal with, but I enjoy the new build, and I love seeing something be turned into something from nothing, right? I think that's really cool. But on the renovation side of things, it's like, oh, let's take this old worn down motel and breathe new life into it. And that's really beautiful as well. So totally depends on those goals. But I think for us, just and kind of what did I learn along this experience? Understand and know that construction's not always going to happen on your timeline, and that's okay. Weather happens, all the things happen, and you just you kind of have to take that and go with it. I would definitely do in a future project underwriting differently, but that comes from being inside of a mastermind, and we were talking about hiring experts earlier, right? Get in rooms with people who are doing what you want to do and who know more than you do. And if I would have been in that room before we got under contract with the cabins, we would have done the underwriting a lot differently. Now, it all worked out and it was fine, but we've made some really heavy capital investments over the last 2 years because the bank would not initially finance on the furnishings. So it was when we did the financing with the bank initially, the project was $2.3 million. They financed 75% loan to value, which was great. So the partnership brought 25% to the table for our down payment. But that was just for our cabin. It was for the land, of course, for the cabins, and then for our event venue and our pickleball court and playground. That's what was included in that 2.3 million initially. And so then our vision grew and we went back to ask for additional funding. And at that time, they were like, okay, we know you guys know what you're talking about now. So we included the furnishings for the remaining 6 cabins that weren't built and furnished at that point. So that was great. But again, things that I would do differently in underwriting, making sure that we have those capital reserves. And, some of the I don't love the numbers side. And that's not the fun, exciting thing for me. Yeah. The fun, exciting thing is what's this place going to be? Let's go. What's the vibe here? Yeah. So anyway, but yeah.
In terms of the cabins, are they all the same layout or do they differ at all? Because I think there's dueling strategies on this. It's an easy build if you make them all the same. And then it has a very community. Hey, we're all 12 located here. We're going to share the amenities. They see that. I'm working on something where I'm thinking I want to do 4 and I want them to be all different. How did you guys do it on the 12? I'm sure both ways work in some ways.
Yeah. So all of the cabins are roughly the same layout except for our triplex. So we have all of the cabins are basically 1 bed, 1 bath with a loft. And so they all sleep 6. They all have these beautiful front porches, which is where the majority of guests actually spend their time. Whenever I've gone down there, everyone's just hanging out on the front porch, which I love. Yeah. But we have a triplex unit. And so that one, because of the build and the roof line, is a little bit different in terms of its layout. So still 1 bed, 1 bath with the loft, but the lofts are huge. So we've got 2 queen beds in the lofts, and then we've got some kind of gaming, whether it's 2 arcade games or some sort of foosball table in between the beds because they're just so big. Yeah. And that unit is obviously all together. They're separated by a firewall on the inside, but it's right on the river. So that's the only structure that was a little bit different, but it still sleeps 6. So what was the decision on building a triplex? That's pretty interesting. I wouldn't think that would come up. Was it just hey, we have this much space left and we want to get in 3 more units to make it work? Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, that idea came from our builder. He was like, I think that we should put a triplex on that riverfront unit instead of, because again, the way that the land sits, it's 9 acres, but it's a very long 9 acres. And so you've got the river sort of at the front of the development and then it goes back. And so really, if we would have built just 2 individual cabins right there, only 2 units would have had that riverfront view, which we knew was going to be the money view, those money cabins. And so our builder was like, let's put a triplex there. And now we'll have 4 riverfront units. And I think that would be stronger. And I was like, yes, I agree with you. And honestly, Jonathan, after having built that and seeing its performance in comparison to our other cabins, I'm like, we should have built 5 triplexes because again, it's in that area, we've become one of the only ones that sleeps 18 essentially in 1 unit. Right. And guests love it. They just rave about it. And it's always the first book at the highest rates, always, every single time. So I would maybe have built another one on the other side, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, that configuration is pretty cool because you could definitely let teenagers stay downstairs by themselves. I grew up, my dad always had ADUs, so I was always we lived outside when we were 13 and 14. We're right on the same property, but I feel that's a good hedge, especially for parents. Teenagers, they stay up till 4 in the morning. I'm going to bed at 10 o'clock. So if you want to get a little space, let them just have the whole house to themselves. Instead of maybe having them across the way where who knows, maybe they're trying to, go find a liquor store by walking at 2 in the morning.
Right.
But it gives you these interesting options. And that's why playing around with it is good. And now, like you said, you've created this proof of concept for other projects. Have you already started to look into more for yourself? What's the next thing that's on your bucket list project or that you have in production?
Yeah. Solid question. My husband and I are planning to take our 2 little boys who are 4 and 2 right now, but they'll be 3 and 5 when we start this journey on camper life for the next year, starting in June of 2026. Yeah. So that's what we're planning for. So we would love to own some sort of RV park, a glampground, a campground, something. Yeah. My kind of vision for that is that we have RV sites, we have cabins, we have glamping tents, something along those lines. So you kind of get to choose your own adventure, but there's a body of water where you can kayak or paddleboard and kind of enjoy that experience. Maybe it's near the mountains. So that's sort of the next project. Any project we do will be somewhere in nature and probably not close to a beach. That's not the kind of, I enjoy the beach. I don't really truthfully want to deal with hurricanes. That's not my jam.
I just get bored at the beach. I'd there's nothing, I can look at the water coming in and out. That's nice. But unless it's a private beach, I mean, one, there's just not that much to do. I don't want to go in the water really. And if you're at a public beach, there's just too many people. Like I just want to, I prefer nature as well. But yeah, like I'd go look at the beach and then I'll go home. So I agree. And your liability is way less, as you said. So you're just kind of hedging your bets for what could happen in the future.
Yeah. So that's our goal for our next project. So we'll see. We're looking at a few different things right now. And, part of me is just like, let's just get on the road and go experience it.
Yeah.
Because we tent camp and that's fantastic. And so that's the other part of the campground. I'm like, we could totally have some nice tent sites too. Yeah. But anyway, we love that life and we love being outdoors and hiking and all of those different nature components. So I'm like, let's go experience what RV life is like and go talk to people and go experience these campgrounds and see what we can do differently.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll document the voyage, which helps you kind of figure it out as you go. But I think that's kind of the fun of exploring what it is. You learned a lot from building these cabins, and now you see, well, what could the next step? Maybe you take the trip, it's 6 months, and you realize, you know what, I don't think it really works. But the time wouldn't be wasted. That's what I always tell to people who maybe they want to do a boutique hotel, but then they realize it's just too big of a chew for them, and they need to do something smaller. You didn't waste all that time. You learned a lot. You're just going to keep putting it into something else, especially when you're learning branding and marketing, as you said, going around talking to people and going back on something you said that I think is really important, what you talked about for Cabins on the Cumberland, talking to people about what they need in the area, and what else is there to see what you're up against and what could be a big win for the community.
Yeah. And I've chatted with a few people who own campgrounds. And so even in those conversations, that's been so interesting. Like it is so important to make sure that you're talking to your avatar, talk to your people about what they really need. But one thing that I learned and that I wouldn't have thought about because we don't have dogs, but the person I was talking to was like, oh, we added dog runs to our different RV sites, which has been phenomenal because, those people are traveling for hours a day. Their dogs need to get out and run around. And so we added dog runs to each site and that has significantly increased guest satisfaction, maybe ADR a little bit, but guests get excited about that. And I'm like, something I never would have thought about. And I think that's something that's really cool about all these different projects that we're all participating in. Yeah. It's like we get to do something new and learn a new skill and try something different on each project. And that's really neat. And the other thing too, I tell people, I'm like, I'm in the business of helping people have really amazing vacation experiences. Right. Like how lucky are we that we're in this space? That's really cool when you boil it down to that.
Yeah, and it must be awesome for you to then on the marketing and branding side help other people who are launching because you can get great ideas from what they do. Well, I've talked to a lot of accountants who over the years would say well, I got into investing because I saw the numbers of all my clients crushing in real estate. So I got into real estate. You're already in it, but now you can see somebody doing something different and you're like, I think our skill set might apply to this. And then you can go do it in a different area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You can kind of take what worked, leave behind what didn't work, do something different in the next one.
You basically have a petri dish of other people that you're helping though. So obviously they're going to do well, but it's like, oh, that was a mistake. I don't have to make that mistake. I mean, that's how everyone should look at it. And they should look at it when they're listening to these episodes. You're telling people what worked and what doesn't work. If they don't want to listen, it's kind of beyond what we can tell you. This is tried and true through experience of what is going to work and what's not. But sometimes people just like to try to, put a nail in steel. I don't know why. Maybe it's ego or something.
Just happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trust experts. I think it would just be so much easier.
So much easier. Yes, so much easier. I'm thinking of a project that we just did it's located in Bethel, Maine, and it is a single family home, but we gave them a brand and it's phenomenal. But I know that as we were going through the branding process, they shot us an email one day and they were like, we're sorry, we haven't replied. I don't know what happened with our measurements, but the couch arrived and it's too big and we're going to have to redo what we were thinking in the basement. And I'm just like, I feel for you guys, but it doesn't change the fact that this is going to be a fantastic brand. What I love about what they've done is that they've so carefully crafted how they want their guests to feel when they come to the property. And it's a large property and it's a multi-generational family home really is what it is. Yeah. And so they've got a karaoke space and they've got the foosball table in the movie room and all of these amazing amenities, right? These amazing features. But they were like, we really want guests to have like these guided experiences throughout. And I was like, we can play on this in the branding.
Yeah.
And so we've created these decks for every single car, these branded decks that walk guests through how to experience this. Like, what are the karaoke challenges that you can do? What are the playlists that you should encourage your guests to have? So instead of just saying we have the amenity, now we took that and escalated it. But yeah, to the point of like, something's going to happen on every project that you're going to be like, I don't know what we're going to do about this, but we're going to figure it out. And at the end of the day, if your brand is great, it will all be okay.
Yeah. It's funny though that you said that. I really love that idea. The last time I had John Bianchi on of STR Search, we were talking about scavenger hunts at properties that you could set up for people. It's like now we're getting to a different level. Like if you have woods, you don't need to knock down the trees, build a tree house, make an adventure. This is what people want to do, because if you're doing a getaway stay, if you're going to the middle of not necessarily nowhere, but you're 15 minutes from groceries or something, you're going to stay at the house most of the time. That going into it. So you need more to do. And not everybody likes, video games and stuff. You really have to kind of, and again, I don't think you need to appeal to everybody, but still video games are cool, but not everyone's going to want it. For me, like I'm into wellness stays. Like mine is going to be like a wellness thing. Like I'm definitely going in sauna, cold plunge, but I'm probably not going to do pickleball. I like tennis. So I'm just not, I'm thinking like micro property. I don't want a big property. I don't want to sleep a lot because it's more, I'm thinking, couples, but it's important to build this in your head before you start looking, right? Because, I'm building my avatar of who I think my stay is. And then I'm building what I want the property to be in terms of what I'm comfortable managing. Is that a smart way to kind of get started in the beginning?
Yeah, you're asking such a great question. And actually, it's something that I hear quite often, especially in the boutique hotel and micro resort space, because it's like, do I need to build the brand and establish the audience and have the vision and have the ideas before I find the property? Or do I find the property and then let that come to life? And I'm like, I really don't think there's one right or wrong way to do it.
Yes,
all of the above. I'm super vision oriented. So I actually in April of 2023, when we got into this space, I shared a post on Instagram that was like, here's the properties that we want to have. And our big dream is to have a piece of land somewhere where we can have multiple units. And it's going to be like epic summer camp vibes. Enter 7 weeks later and the cabins present themselves to us.
Yeah.
So I was just really clear in the vision and then it happened, right? Like then it came to life. So that is very much like how I operate. And that works really well for me. That doesn't always work well for other people. And again, like I'm also not the investor that's like the numbers.
Yeah,
I'm like, what's the vibe and the vision? And then do the numbers make sense?
Yeah, I personally think that's the best way to go. But I think you have to be that kind of thinker for it to work, because I do think Field of Dreams style, as you said, if you build it, they will come. It's like if you think it will show up because you've kind of built around what you want. But then I think it also helps you look more efficiently. Instead of just looking for everything under 500K, I'm looking for, no, I'm going to start to adjust the acreage because I need to have this. And then I'm going to just put waterfront if I need it. It doesn't have to be like a gigantic ocean, like we were saying, but you start to curate what you want, and then you can search more efficiently. So you're not scrolling listings that are never going to work for you. And we all get that, shiny syndrome, just looking around and saying like, oh, you're going to look at things and then it never works. I do it all day. I get the new email from Redfin, or I'm looking on my MLS and I'm like, oh, this would be so great. And I have to every day tell myself that's not your vibe. Like you're not good at that. So leave it alone. But, fortunately I have clients, so I can look at both. But I think for myself, I really like to boil it down. It's helping me look at properties that are better. And even when I go up, I get there and I'm like, okay, I like this, but I know it's not for me. And I think that's really important because we all have limited time, as we were saying in the beginning. The more efficient your search can be, I think it can be really drastically helped by what you were saying, by just building some yes or no's. And you can always change them along the way, but at least having a list of what you really want.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to be excited about the project that you're going to work on and pour your heart and soul into, right? Yeah. It's like, again, it can look good on paper and it can be numbers, but if it's like a motel in the middle of nowhere with nothing exciting around it, I'm not really very interested. Like that doesn't sound exciting to me. So I want to make sure that it's in a space that I feel good about. And also the other check for me is like, would I take my family here?
Yeah.
Would I go here either
Always.
with me and my husband, or am I going to bring my family here? And if the answer is yes, okay, great. Like that's one check, which is awesome. And if it's no, then I'm like, I'm not interested in even looking at this. This is not something that aligns with who I am or with my values or what I want to bring to life.
Yeah, I like what you said before though, because you could also say like I'm older, I'm 54, so I can look at younger me. Okay, when I first, like, my kids are older, your kids are 4 and 2, my kids at one time were 4 and 2. I can look back on that and say what I wanted to have go then. And I knew, because I've been staying in short-term rentals my whole life, I don't like hotels because I want laundry and I want like, I'm not taking my kids out for breakfast every single morning. Like how many things can you do? Like, we just can't do that all the time. So that was always a thing for me. And I think we're just seeing that more expressed in the culture of what people want. When the prices are similar, why don't you just want to stay in a smaller house with your whole family and no one's knocking on your door for housekeeping at 8:30? I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer to me.
100%. I completely agree with that. It's so interesting. Where if it's just me traveling by myself, I'm the like hotel booker. Or if it's my husband and I, like, okay, maybe. But as our family, now we're big Disney fans, Jonathan. So we will go to Disney and stay on It's different. It's different. Yes,
both of my kids' first birthdays were at the Magic Kingdom and we had the character breakfast. It's easier if you're there because you can just get the tram from there. I mean, that I agree. So that's specific. I'm glad you brought that up though, because I think you need to apply, like we're saying, we're using ourselves as avatars for what we want. But I think if you use yourself as an avatar or your prior self or your future self, you're just going to be more connected and excited about the property. Like you said, it does nothing to me to buy something that I'm not excited about. Like, why would I put my money into that? It makes no sense. I could just keep it in index funds. That's boring. I don't care about it. Makes money, but you don't want to buy something that eventually you're going to be annoyed to have. That just seems silly.
100%. Yeah. You don't want to buy something that you're like, I didn't really like this and now it's a pain. And it's just like, this is bad energy all around.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us who your ideal client avatar is at the Weber Co. I think that would be helpful for people to know if they're looking for help. Who's your ideal avatar for you?
Yeah. Yeah, we have kind of two different avatars. One is on the short-term rental side of things or the co-hosting side of things, but that specific avatar really understands and knows that they are building a hospitality business and also knows that branding has to be at the core of that for them. They're still going to use the OTAs and that's fine, but they're very intentional about the design and the guest experience, and they want it to be more than just a home that they've listed on Airbnb. And so we're walking them through the branding process and the marketing process, and that client also is probably more heavily focused on email marketing, at least at the beginning, than they are maybe on social media marketing, depending on how they're using their socials. Yeah. Now, if we're talking to someone who's like, this is what I do. I buy properties, I fix them, I flip them, I do all the things, like, then I may be talking to someone who's building their more of a personal brand that's supporting what they're doing on the property side. So anyway, that's kind of the short-term rental side of things. Then we have, and also that person desires to scale. So typically they don't just have one property, they're continuing to grow. And so then we're going, all right, what's the umbrella brand? And how do we give each property a presence under that brand? Yeah. On the boutique hotel and micro resort side of things, again, these are independently owned. You're not, there's not like a flagship brand over you most of the time that you're have to fall within, right?
A one address resort.
Yes. Correct. And again, usually there's some sort of scale involved there, but usually those clients that we're working with, it may be their first or second project that they're getting into, and then they come back to us and continue to use us in that regard. But same things in terms of like they care about guest experience. They know it's a hospitality business. Their stake is a little different because they're building a brand that at some point will probably be sellable for them, right? Yeah. So they're tying that and the guest experience and the marketing and all of those assets become part of the total business asset at some point in time. A little different in the short-term rental single family home vibe. But yeah, that's kind of who we focus on and who we support the best.
Yeah. And in the short-term rental side, how much are you involved in? And if we're talking, let's say, like, I just want to, because I'm thinking this as well, like for furnishings, are they hiring somebody else out, or is that kind of under your overall branding? Like, who's involved in that? How far do you go for what you do?
I love that you're asking this question, Jonathan.
I'm thinking for myself.
It's good.
I always forget I have an audience. I thought these were just all for myself.
It's fine. When we got into this when I decided to pivot the Weber Co. in 2023, because before that I had supported hundreds of different entrepreneurs in every kind of different industry. You name an industry and I probably had my hands on it. And so when short-term rentals found us and we found them, I was like, niche. This is it. This is what every mentor has been telling me I need to do is pick a niche. And I didn't want it to be the fashion industry. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, here we are in the world of short-term rentals. And I had a few different conversations. And again, this whole conversation, like short-term rentals were really different then. So people were maybe thinking about branding and marketing, but not without design. And so I was like, cool, I can design, like I can do that.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I learned very quickly that year that I did not want to design. That was not my vibe. That was not my gift.
Yeah.
That was not my gift. So it happens in a couple of ways. Sometimes I will be working hand in hand with a designer where clients bring in a property and they're like, I know who the designer is that I want to work with. So like Josh and Deanna, we have a number of projects where we're kind of like both doing that together.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that again, guest experience perspective is aligning with design.
Right.
So if the property is already designed, then we kind of have to go, all right, how do we brand this? And what do we maybe need to shift? Doesn't mean you need to redesign the property, just we need to add a couple of features or enhancements to help guests experience the property.
Awesome. Okay, last question. This is a perfect question for you, and I think a great way to sum it up, because I think it's something that not a lot of people think of, but we've touched on it a little bit. If you're building a brand for a short-term rental, how important is it for you to get a quote influencer in? Because I think there can be bad choices and good choices. And what do you have to give them? And does that taint the actual review? How do you work with influencers when you have a short-term rental in the best way, like the most authentic way?
This could be a podcast episode in and of itself, I think.
Yeah. We'll set it up for the next one because I really like this idea, but I also see influencers where I'm like, I don't want them to stay at my place at all. It's too much.
Right. So a couple of things. Whenever we're sourcing influencers for clients, because that is a service that we offer. And I feel like I have a little different perspective because I also was an influencer.
Yeah.
So I can see both sides of the coin as an influencer and then also on the brand side of things. Whenever we're sourcing, the first thing that we're looking at is target audience of what is the brand targeting and does that influencer share that audience?
Yeah.
And then let me see your analytics and make sure that there's proof there that is true. And then can they story tell effectively?
Yeah,
and can they tell the story that we want them to tell about the brand? Do they have proof of that? Is there alignment in that? And there are great influencers and there are influencers who are totally in it for the free stay. And I totally understand the frustration in the industry, but you also have to go, what's the value of bringing in influencers? And sometimes that's going to be, they're going to provide you some really great content that you can now take and use in your marketing. And that's fantastic. They're also bringing in new audience members. So some of the brands that we've used for influencer, or some of the influencers we've used for brands this year have helped contribute to, for example, one client, 0 direct bookings to 50% in less than 60 days.
That's awesome.
By using influencers.
Huge
right?
money save over the platforms.
Huge. So they were like, all right, that in and of itself was worth it. Plus then we got content for them, which also saved them on some photography or videography fees as they are getting started, right? So it's kind of one of those things that it's like, you can use influencers. And I've also seen some crazy pitches. Like we pitched an influencer for Tremont Lodge, who's one of our clients.
Yeah.
And the quote came back at $18,000. And I was like, okay, cool. So show me proof that you drive a 3X at least return on that. And I didn't get a response back. So I was like, okay, then we move on. I don't care how big your audience is. If their results aren't there in order to drive revenue at that price point, I'm out. So again, you have to kind of understand what are your goals with influencer marketing and then align those goals with the right influencer and the one that's going to be able to tell your story the best.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm glad I snuck that one in. I think hopefully people get to the back end. We have listeners who are pretty aggressive and they listen to the whole show. So I'll have to make sure we get a clip out of that one. Well, I really appreciate it. It's been great getting to know you and learning more about this process. It's definitely a different view on a lot of our short-term rental shows. So I really appreciate it. And I'm glad we have so many shared connections. So I look forward to staying in touch.
Oh, me too, Jonathan. Thank you so much again for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right. That was Steph Weber. She's the CEO of The Weber Co. You can find her at theweberco.com and on Instagram at The Weber Co. I'm Jonathan Greene. We'll see you next episode. Thanks for sticking around to the end so you can get a preview of who's coming up on episode 304 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing. And it's my friend, a return guest, Katie Klein. When we first talked to her, she had a show called Sweet Success, which I was on because she is a hospitality expert and she's starting to become an expert in short-term rentals. But the way that her first property came to light is part of the reason for her new podcast. And we actually talked about it on my show, talked about it on her show, and now we're doing it again because now we're talking second homes first. You're going to love it. Next episode with Katie.